Kia ora koutou. Hopefully we are live on Facebook. And here we have the rather amazing Emily Wrights. Yay! She's live from Wellington today, where it's windswept but glorious weather, I believe.
It is. Kia ora, everybody. Kia ora, Lou.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. I know that, first of all, you've all been quite poorly. You've all had the nasty snot colds.
Yeah. Thankfully not COVID, but the whole house is I've had both kids home most of the week last week and the week before, and I've just sort of come right now. So I'm still a little bit blocked up, but basically okay.
That was quite a worry for you because you've managed to avoid the COVID, haven't you?
Yeah. So we've been basically sheltering from COVID, and I've only just started to do a few events around the book, and I did like my very first event. I think it was my second event of the whole year, and I got a cold from that. So
I think that's it. The more we isolated, it was like you don't get all the normal
exactly.
that you would have got.
Yeah.
Oh, that book. You mean this book?
That's it.
I'm so excited to have had an advanced copy because we haven't got it in the shops yet. So what is the release date for Needs Adult Supervision?
It was meant to be 30 August, but I'm here. Some places have it and some don't. And some people who did pre-orders have it and some people who did pre-orders don't have it. So I think it's one of those COVID supply chain.
Yeah, it'll be along any day at Wardini Books, and I know that we will have pre-orders for that also.
Yeah.
Something that I probably ought to say quickly to everybody listening is that if you have questions for Emily, you can type them in the Facebook comments, and Gareth will feed them through to me on Zoom, and I will ask her politely. So, because what you do so massive, I was listening to RNZ today in the car, and Jim Mora asked Nadia Reid if you had to explain what you do when an Uber driver says, "Oh, what is it you do?" Emily Wrights, what is it you do?
Oh, that is a good one. I always say I'm a writer, and then they say, "Oh, what do you write about?" And that's when I get stuck. So I guess I kind of write about life and parenting and life. I think that I never know whether to call myself like a columnist or an essayist or a writer but mainly I just put my thoughts down and send them out into the world and hope that they connect with somebody. So that's kind of been my main job. I started a newsletter, and that allowed me to quit all my day jobs because I had a lot of day jobs doing like marketing and PR and that comms work and that type of stuff, copywriting. But yeah, I've now managed to I'm just a writer now, and I do like sort of, I have a charity on the side that I do a lot of work for. So yeah, I guess writer. Yeah.
Yes. I just want to point out that when I was having a little tinker about today, someone had described you as feminist parenting writer, which I thought sounded slightly aggressive and much more dull than what you actually do, because you're just such an entertaining writer. There's joy and sorrow and everything in between in what you write, isn't there?
Oh, thank you. I mean, I hope so. I think that, I would hope that my writing would be like, it's me trying to capture the parenting experience, right? So it's like, I do find parenting to be this like hugely rewarding and incredible thing, and also exhausting and just really taxing and draining while being joyous and wonderful. So my hope would be that my writing would capture what parenting feels like, which is that it is real ups and downs, and yeah.
And there's no normal experience of it either. I was talking to a colleague at my shop the other day, and we were saying, like, how do mums do it now in the age of social media where, you used to get judged at the ball pit or wherever it was, but, now you get judged from all sides, so how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think that has been the primary motivation for me writing. My very first piece that I wrote was not designed to be read by anybody other than a few friends. And when it kind of went everywhere, the next day I kind of checked my email and I had 15,000 emails from all over the world.
My God.
But it just really, it was terrifying. It was not good for, my anxiety. But at the same time, I was struck by how many parents feel completely overwhelmed by all of the constant pressures that they have from social media, this idea that they have to be perfect, and also that everybody has an opinion. So like even just whether you breastfeed or bottle feed is suddenly something that people discuss openly, or how you get your child to go to sleep is like this contentious thing. And I think prior to having kids, I just had no idea it was like that. And I think it's such a uniquely terrifying thing to face all of these opinions all of the time. So I guess I wanted to provide a bit of a alternative to that, where instead of being part of the sort of juggernaut of parenting advice and unsolicited advice and all that, I wanted to be more like, let's be a village. Let's be the village they keep talking about that a lot of us haven't experienced yet. Let's try and make that happen. So it was kind of me really pushing back against what I felt was just a really toxic thing for new parents to face.
And it always has been that way. I mean, my kids are 23 and 25 now, but it was always, if you breastfeed in public, that's disgusting, or back in the day. There's always some iteration of it, isn't there? And now, of course, if you don't breastfeed, that's disgusting, or you're not doing the best for your child. So I really love that, and I appreciate the way that you can say, my house is a bomb site, and there might be, I'm making all this up now, this is not in the book, there might be a dog shit on the floor, but the kids are happy and they're sleeping, and I just love that. We've got a comment here from Susan. Susan says she looks forward to Friday night when she sits down and reads your column. Great to see you in real life.
Oh, thank you so much. That is such a joy to hear. I love the newsletter community. It's a real struggle to be a writer in New Zealand, and I think that a lot of people don't understand, as we do with all professions, you don't really understand it unless you're sort of in it. And I was so exhausted writing all of, doing all the writing I used to do at night, and then doing a normal job and all the kids stuff and everything like that. And I was so shattered, and there were so many times where I was like, this is not sustainable to keep writing for free. But then when I got told, why don't you try this newsletter, I was like, nobody's going to pay in New Zealand to read a newsletter. Like, they're just not going to. And I was so, it still makes me just really emotional that people pay me and support me directly to do this mahi. Like, they believe in the kaupapa of building community and all that. And it just means the world to me that actually, after dreaming of this being my job for 6 years, and 6 years of real hard grind, I'm now there, and it's solely because of people like Susan paying for me to do it.
And Chrissy, who is looking forward to her pre-order of Needs Adult Supervision.
Oh, yay.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of people out there.
I hope they arrive soon. I feel I've had lots of messages going, I pre-ordered, where's my book? And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I think it's COVID. I blame everything.
It will be. It'll be in a box, in a courier's van, behind lots of other boxes. And it will come, people. It will come. But I think you have a real gift, and when we say that to writers, sometimes it can come across like, oh, it must be so easy for you. Is it easy for you? Does this just come out, or is it something you have to craft and recraft?
I think that, when you're really limited with the time that you have to write, you can't be too obsessive about what you're writing. Like, I can't edit and redraft what I'm writing, because I just simply don't have the time between looking after the kids and, sick kids and my charity stuff and my voluntary work. It's like a lot of people where because I did this for so many years without, I never got to do like a writing retreat, or I never got to learn how you're meant to write properly. I guess I just kind of do it my own way. And because I've got because I've got ADHD, I just have a really short attention span. So I write in bursts in the night on my phone, and I'll go back to things and I'll be like, oh, there's a better way of saying this, or, but I don't tend to relitigate a lot of what I say, but I do sit on it for a while. So I write things and then I put it to the side and I come back to it, because I feel like, because I'm writing about my children, I want my tamariki to know, I'm being really careful with these stories. Like, I'm not sharing for the sake of sharing. I'm sharing with a specific purpose in mind. So if I share something, I will go back and think, do I still think this is something that should exist outside of our home? Does it still have a purpose for living outside of our home as a piece of writing? So I do kind of put things aside and let them breathe for a little bit before I publish them. But I'm not really someone who does the sit down and write, or I just use whatever bits of time that I have to write. And whether it's easy or not, I mean, it's definitely easier than being a midwife or working in retail. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel
for you it is, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like there's really hard jobs out there, and I feel really lucky that my job is to talk to really interesting people and share their stories. And, I mean, it's a beautiful job, and I guess I can't help but just feel so grateful that even the times where I'm like, oh, blank page, what am I going to write about? I still feel so lucky to, the privilege of the blank page, I guess.
Yeah. And its potential.
Yeah.
And the way you write is just so full of humour. It's just, honestly, I think I emailed you the other day and said I did laugh and cry in the hairdressers. And, I'm beyond the age where I'm embarrassed about anything, so that's okay. But just I really love it. It's quite early on in the book, because there are so many things that I want to talk about, but they would be spoilers. Particularly, I'm not going to spoil this at all, but one of the moments of pure joy that wasn't joyful for you at the time, but in retrospect, it's a bloody hilarious story, is your birth story that happens to include the lift. I howled.
Somebody came to me, I was grocery shopping the other day, and someone stopped me in the aisle and was like, I just read your book yesterday, it arrived yesterday, and I stayed up all night reading it. And then she goes to me, the lift. And my husband looked at me oh, Emily, you put the lift story you put the lift story in.
I'm not sure how well he comes out of that either, really. Just he's only in it for one comment, and it's that's what you said to him. Anyway, so you have great teasers here for everybody that's not managed to read the book yet. You are in for an absolute treat. So many things did stand out for me about you, but just how gorgeous your kids are as well. Just the way that they comfort one another and they understand one another so well. The goal of the lift story. So I'll ask some more sort of general questions. So just tell us about your activism, because you I don't know if you describe yourself or your publicist describes yourself as
I
activist.
I'm 100% an activist at heart. All my writing comes from a space of kind of, I guess, the softest part of myself that hopes for things to be better for people. I am director of Awhina Mata, which we're trying to set up a place for parents of medically fragile and immune compromised and disabled children to be able to come together online in a private space to talk to each other and share what helps them get through. It's kind of something that I wish I had had in the early days when Eddie was really, really sick. It's kind of a way to be there are Facebook groups everywhere, but a lot of them aren't very private, and a lot of them have people in them trying to sell you something. And I was like, what if you had a purely free platform that has no marketing or anything like that. It's just about parents helping parents. So that takes up a lot of my time. I guess I really want a world where we respect and value children, because I think if we start at that point of, really respecting and boosting the voices of tamariki, that has this flow-on effect for their caregivers who are predominantly women. So it has a really positive impact on women's rights, the rights of carers. If we value care work, we value the elderly more and we protect the elderly and tamariki. I kind of have this view of like, if you start with how we as a society treat children, and the ongoing impact from that basically makes every other facet of life better for people. So yeah, I'm just really quite, that's kind of where my kaupapa sits, of like, loving on mums and looking after mums, but especially like protecting tamariki, and especially our vulnerable tamariki, like our disabled and medically fragile tamariki. So yeah, I mean, activism is like breathing for me. It's really important to me. And yeah, to me, that's kind of my life's work, is in activism.
Yeah, and thank goodness it is that I don't know who said it, bad things happen when good people do nothing. So yeah, there's such a lot of gratitude in your book too. And I know that you've had interesting experiences online where you have been attacked, and you see all sides of it. And I suppose most people that are reading your columns and your Facebook and your Instagram, they're there because they're interested in parenting and they want to be good parents. And I would imagine in your book, you've had to really sort of go, okay, I am thankful for this because of this. And I think I'm thinking of how you were explaining to your children that person was wearing a mask for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Like, I really struggled with boundaries and processing what it's like to be like an online person in the first couple of years of writing. Like, I went from having just being at home with a 3-week-old to suddenly having 800,000 plus people reading everything I wrote, and getting just thousands of emails from strangers, messages on every platform. When I started, I didn't even have Facebook and Instagram, and it was this thing where you're kind of catapulted into this life that you didn't expect that you'd have. And I thought I could actually be anonymous right up until, and I was, until my first book, Rants in the Dark, came out. And there's no author photo in Rants in the Dark, because I really thought I could skate through and nobody would know who I was. And then I realised that's not how book promo goes. But it was a real shock to the system to suddenly be on TV and radio and be interviewed and have my face out there. And I don't think that any human being is used to the idea of people saying things like, I hate you, or, calling you horrible names and stuff. I don't think I spent a lot of years with people saying you need to be tougher, you need a thicker skin. But I really felt like I can't be the mother that I want to be, the writer that I want to be, the human I want to be, the friend, sister, daughter, whatever. I can't be those things if I am too tough. Like, being soft is important to me. Like, it's how I be the person that I want to be in this life. So yeah, I really struggled in the early years to be like, is this the price you pay when you write? That you just have to deal with people being really cruel. Now that I'm older and a bit wiser and have therapy, have had therapy, I guess I kind of I'm much better with boundaries. I'm a bit better with, like, I can help people, but when people get really upset and angry with me, I'm able to go, okay, they're going through a really tough time. I'm going to step back and not take on all of the, because people life is hard for people right now. And I think if you don't have a punching bag, you turn people into your punching bag. And sometimes just the first person on your Facebook feed becomes that, especially if you don't know them. And so I kind of recognize that for me, when people say they hate me and I'm the worst person and all that, I think that it's just, they're just going through some shit and I'm the first person that they saw when they on their Facebook feed. And so it's not about me, it's about life being hard. So I'm trying to be like, take that approach with it and try and have grace for people. Especially because my boys are watching, right? Like as mothers, our children are watching us, and you're trying to teach them that, you know, hurt people, and you don't want to be one of those people who hurts people right back, you know? So, yeah, I don't know if I answered that question well, but...
You absolutely did, because I think it was a very muddled question the way it came out of my mouth. So, well done. Yeah, I mean, that's what your rational brain does, isn't it? Go, okay, that's not about me. That's about what that person's going through. But it is quite hard to have a tough skin when you're not the sort of person that's got one.
Yeah, because as well, you know, you're not writing in a... Like, I'm not writing in a vacuum. Like, if I write something, if somebody reads something I've written and it really upsets them, I actually want them to tell me. You know, like if there's something that I've said, you know, like there's this big thing right now about like, oh, cancel culture, call out culture. But I get comments being like, oh, hey, the way you worded this, I don't think it, you know, you might not have meant it, but it came across this way. And I'm like, oh, thanks for letting me know, because you're writing and all of this stuff is learning. And when somebody comes to me and says, hey, you said this and I don't think you meant to, but it came out this way and it kind of hit me. And for me, I'm like, oh, thanks that you believe enough in me as a person that you think that I can change, that I can be better, because I want to be. Like, I don't want to hurt people with my writing. That's the opposite of what I want to do. So I think that there's like this thing where you need to be able to recognize the people who will never like you, have never liked you, don't believe that you're worthy of respect and being treated decently. And then other people who are on this journey with you of trying to navigate life and parenting, and they're helping you out by giving you, you know, support to get through it. Like, I think of things like if somebody calls me out or whatever, I'm like, oh, thank goodness that they just, you know, have enough faith that I'm not going to spin out and lose it at them. And, you know, you've got to really put your ego aside. I think there's like a lot of ego in writers sometimes, where they think that I won't ever get it wrong. And I'm very aware that I will get it wrong. I'm writing on not a lot of sleep. So, you know, so I'm grateful for that belief in me that I'm still worthy of learning.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's why people love you and your writing so much, is because you're not afraid to get it wrong. And I'm just thinking, when you were a very young person, the Mike McRoberts story is one that cracked me up as well. So you meet this really cool bloke. Can we spoil that? Can you tell us what happened?
We can. Yeah, so when I was like 15 or 16 or something like that, I worked at the Woolworths fish bar. They used to have like a fish bar, and I don't know if they still have these at supermarkets because I don't eat much fish, but from the trauma of working in the fish bar, I used to have to clean the mussel machine, and I would get little cuts in my fingers, and the fish oil would get in my fingers, and I smelled like fish all the time, which you can imagine what that's like for like a 15, 16-year-old girl. But yeah, I was working and Mike McRoberts came, and I just went wild for him because at the time I wanted to be like a war correspondent. I was very like, I'm gonna be a UN peacekeeper or a war correspondent, or God knows what I was thinking. But yeah, and I don't know if I can even say it. I'm kind of shocked at the stories I put in the book. Because, like, what if Mike McRoberts like reads this?
I hope he does, because he comes out quite well.
He was very kind to me and was like giving me advice and talking to me, and yeah, I don't know, I can't remember exactly how I phrased it. Yeah.
We'll see if we can find that page.
Yeah. I
People are desperate
basically,
to know this story now anyway. We're doing a good promo for the book.
oh, I know. And now I really should have thought about it, because the other day I like opened up the book and it came up to the Mike McRoberts thing, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I just did not think too much about the fact that Mike McRoberts is going to read this. So it's basically from having, like, you know, those things that keep you up at night, like 2 a.m. thoughts and that type of thing. So I'll just read it. It's short. And one day I was cutting up turkey and I looked up and saw beloved broadcaster Mike McRoberts, and I said, "You're Mike McRoberts?" And he smiled and said yes, kind of awkwardly. And I said, "I really want to be a war correspondent like you." And he said something very polite, like, "That's great." And he asked me if I was studying, and I was standing there in my fish apron and my countdown uniform, and I was like, "No." And then he said something else polite that I can't remember. And I started awkwardly rambling about his amazing work in war zones and natural disasters. And then he said, "Well, best of luck," or something nice. And then I wanted to keep talking to him, but I couldn't think of anything to continue the conversation. So I said, "My hands smell like fish all the time." And he just looked at me, and then I raised 2 fingers towards him to try to get him to smell my fingers. I asked Mike McRoberts to smell my fingers. Yeah.
It's like, you're much younger than me, but it's like the Dirty Dancing I carried a watermelon moment. It may mean something to somebody.
It's like those things, you know, where, like, it doesn't matter how long ago it was. I will wake up in the night and I will be like, I asked Mike McRoberts to smell my fingers. Like, it's just one of those recurring horrors. And I think, you know, in a way, the book is kind of about all these, like, little recurring horrors that come upon us as adults, where we're just like, you know, when you go out somewhere and then you get home and you lay in bed replaying the whole night of, like, all the terrible things you said and the awkwardness and the, you know, like, I just think if you're like, and I used to think, oh, I'm the most awkward person. But then I realized that everybody is just very awkward. Like, everybody is going through life very awkwardly. And we just have these, like, perfect Instagram people that make us believe that we're not all just bumbling idiots, like, walking around. Yeah. And
I think that's why your readers love you so much, including me, because we can just go, yeah, totally, that's me, I did that, and it's okay. You know, this person that I really admire does that kind of crap too, so it's just marvelous. So I would like to thank you for that. And I think inexplicably half an hour has gone, so we've kind of run out of time. I was going to ask you about Bruce and about Twinkle Princess, because
Bruce just walked in. My cat Bruce just walked in and sat in he's sitting in the sun right now. The book is dedicated to Bruce, my cat, and Gemma, my therapist. I just feel like it's those two just got me through the pandemic, my therapist and my cat. No shade to my husband and family, like, love them, but I really needed my cat and therapist to get me through. So yeah,
it's good to know for all us pet lovers out there. Yeah. Emily, thank you. This has been amazing, and I hope maybe you'll get down to Hawke's Bay. I know your good friend Chris Tiso is our new poet laureate. Will be coming.
Yes, our new poet laureate. Yes,
so that's exciting.
I would love to. I just love it there, and I always remember the reading that I did at Wardini.
Oh, good.
Yeah, like, I think it was for Rants in the Dark, right? Yeah. So I would love to come back. So, yeah, it would be my pleasure. So thank you so much.
Good to see you.
And
see you again.
interesting to me. So, and thanks to everyone who is listening.
And everybody will need to get hold of Emily Wright's Needs Adult Supervision, which one of your kids thinks is hilarious, eh?
Yes, he loves that. Yeah.
Needs Adult Supervision. It will be in, if it's not in your local bookshop, it will be there any minute now. Have patience, peoples. Right, lovely. Thank you, Emily. See you soon.
So much. Thank you.
Cheers.